Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. Today we're going to open up the store and have a little bit of maybe a ranty video on the three biggest issues in the TCG industry. That's kind of how I'm going to title this video. I do want to preface while we're turning on the lights here, it's a lot easier to complain about things than it is to share how enjoyable the process of owning an LGS is. And I've done that in many other videos. So I don't want you to hear, it's hard. I don't want you to hear that I don't enjoy the industry. Watch this. I love these lights. These lights look so good. Look at that, pop the product. I don't want you to hear that I don't enjoy the industry. I'm sure comments are gonna be like, oh, you get to whine about selling Pokemon and Magic cards. You have no clue how lucky you are. I understand it. I want to start out by being like, I understand how lucky I am to get to be in this position. But that being said, there are still some big issues in the world of TCGs. And I want to talk about them. First off, space has been awesome. It's getting dirty already. We do clean, it's not dirty. There's not like dirt everywhere. We do clean daily, but you can, in the back room, you can just tell we've been here for 2 weeks. I mean, it's just crazy. It's looking good though. People are enjoying it. It's been awesome. We're doing a lot of our prepping for shipping Spider-Man, and the space seems to be working out pretty well. Single space seems to be going well for those who ship the singles, and but I mean, it's just getting messy. Look at that here. Today I gotta clean because I gotta stop this place from getting messy. All right, let's talk about the things I think are the biggest issues in the TCG space right now. First and foremost, this will come to no surprise to anybody. Distribution is such an issue. There's so much that goes on the back end, and like, I love my distributors, I love my reps. It's great. The problem is not with any one distributor. The problem is that the industry has changed so much, and distribution as a whole hasn't changed very much, if that's what makes sense. We live in this world where it used to be that distribution funded and fulfilled the idea that stores were hosting events, and it was, it made sense to have that kind of distribution thing where you had players in the store. But now the world of TCGs is so wrapped up around these lottery ticket, big pull rates, huge print quantities, and like, it just doesn't scale correctly when you have these limited big chase things like collector boxes. They just don't scale correctly to the distribution model. In other words, right now, what distribution essentially does, you can't just order the big stuff. You got to order all this other crap, and you have to, with Pokemon, when the hits are so rare and when it's so big of a deal to get the product, you end up going through these motions, and it's not, I guess it's probably distribution's fault. But again, it's not any specific distributor. It's like, you have to spend all this money on stuff you don't want to get the stuff that you do want, which intrinsically isn't a huge issue, other than then you just dump all the stuff you don't want. And this is where we see the market dynamics come in with these huge dumps on products that don't need to be so cheap. They're not worthless products. They're cool things. And you start seeing that over time, the value of the stuff kind of drifts back up and that kind of thing. But the model just doesn't work with the variety and the number of SKUs that exist. And we'll get into the number of games that exist. That'll be a spoiler for this video. And so the distribution model, I think, needs to be something that somebody comes in and changes. I would say out of everything in this list, the thing that could be the most disrupted and not necessarily the easiest disrupted would be the distribution model. And I tend to think that eventually a lot of the games will move towards their own fulfillment, potentially utilizing things like Amazon. Amazon wasn't a thing back in the early 90s as a fulfillment company, right? Like, now there's Amazon fulfillment. There's ways to utilize Amazon to store your products and then distribute. I do think eventually, if if the current level of distribution shenanigans continues, I do think things like Pokemon, eventually Magic, will start utilizing other avenues to distribute their game, which is kind of crazy. I think there's already a couple of talks with adding some pretty major players to the distribution conversation, which is very interesting and probably good and probably healthy to add more, companies to the pie that is creating these things. But at the end of the day, it's hard to do that too. It's hard to get away from the current model and the current state of things. So I do think that that'll be something that gets disrupted. The second thing that I think needs disrupted in the industry is the monopoly between TCG Player and eBay. Maybe a lot of you don't know, but TCG Player was purchased by eBay, which creates this weird place where it doesn't, listen, I love TCG Player. We do a ton of business on TCG Player. We sell a ton of singles on TCG Player. You can use my TCG Player affiliate link. It's in the description of all my videos. TCG Player is a fantastic way to go and sell your cards. And it's really the best way to sell your cards in terms of listing the inventory, waking up, being able to ship things. eBay, I don't like. You have to, pictures, and it's a lot more work to list individual cards, blah, blah, blah. But that being said, eBay shill, TCG Player shill out of the way. There's no competition. So they don't really need to be better. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to print a shipping label from TCG Player. It's almost insulting as a card store who pays a lot of fees to TCG Player. I mean, astronomical amount of money given to TCG Player from my hard work to list the cards and whatever. I have to go to a pirate ship. I have to export a CSV, import it to pirate ship, print my labels, export a CSV, and import to TCG Player in order to print labels. That's wild, man. And it just shows that TCG Player doesn't need to do anything. They have this huge piece of the pie. And that's an issue. That's an issue in an industry that needs the evolution and needs to evolve and grow. And this industry is so much bigger today than it was in 2020, 2018, 2019. I mean, it's got to be astronomically bigger in terms of the size of the industry. And the giant of TCG Player hasn't changed. I don't think they have a new UI, but it's terrible and everybody hits the button to go back to the old UI. I mean, they have to. Oh, they don't. They won't. The point is they don't have to because there's no competition. So I think one of the big things that sucks in the industry is there's not a true competitor to TCG Player. And in reality, it's going to be incredibly difficult to ever compete with TCG Player. I mean, I remember, I started playing Magic in 2011. And I pretty much only went to TCG Player to buy cards. That was, how many years ago is that? That's a lot of years ago. I mean, we're talking 14, 15 years ago. And the industry hasn't changed from that. And so I think that's a big issue. It's really hard to even think that anybody will be able to interject. I know in the comment section, you're going to leave me a couple of different places that are trying to interject with that. But the reality is the tiny amount that they actually interject with that is insane. The third issue in the TCG space, and I think that this one is very, very heavily connected to the other two, the distribution and the TCG Player issue, is the number of games that are currently in the system, in the world, that people are asking for. Listen, it's getting to the point, I don't realistically know if I can carry any more games. Riftbound's coming out. Lorcana is obviously, out. Star Wars is a major, these are major players, major games. You got Pokemon, Magic, obviously. Yu-Gi-Oh! We don't even carry Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's just not, for us, it's just not worth the energy. We don't have anybody that really knows Yu-Gi-Oh! On the staff. Maybe it's a giant hole in the business. I don't know. But, Dragon Ball Super, Sorcery, there's just a billion games that are coming out all the time with massive IPs behind them. I mean, like, League of Legends is going to, the Riftbound game, for at least a short period of time, is going to be a major player. They are going to be on the top lists on IVC2 or whatever it is. They're going to be on the top of TCG player singles. I mean, even, like Sorcery was also on the top of those things. They were on the TCG player, hit list, the kind of stuff like that. There's just so many games. And because there's so many games, and additionally, because Magic has so many different SKUs, because Pokemon has a new set and a new ETB and a new whatever every 3 days, because of all the different SKUs, distribution can't keep up. And when they do get a new game, they know nothing about the game. I don't understand why these new games go to the distributors to do it. I mean, like, it's not like the distributors telling me anything about the game. I have to ask them about it most of the time because and it's not their fault. Again, it's not distribution's fault. It's an old system met with, now there's a billion games. How are they supposed to keep up? They can't even keep up with the Pokemon SKUs, with the Magic SKUs. I'm still waiting for allocation on Riftbound, which comes out next month. I mean, it's crazy how much product and stuff is being offered and being brought through the doors of LGSs these days. And the expectation from customers is that we carry a lot of that stuff. And at some point, and maybe we're just in small town West Virginia, but at some point there's just not enough customers to really build out the product and the SKUs. I mean, like, for Lorcana, we got playmats in. I got like 3 of the playmats or something like that. And I was like, don't even add it. I told my staff, I was like, don't even add it to our Shopify. Just put them out on the counter and charge it, do it custom. It's not worth the time for all these SKUs when you get so little of it to build it into the system to sell it correctly as a business in Shopify. And that's a whole nother tangent. At the end of the day, with this video, bringing back, I know it was negative, 3 things that I don't like about the TCG industry right now. To bring back, the industry is booming. It is going so well right now. But these are the things that will be factors in the next kind of eventual decline of things. When you have this many SKUs and this many games sloshing through the distribution networks, and all these things are going to add to the inevitable release of a game, and it just completely flops, and it hurts you or hurts me as a business. So at the end of the day, you have to prepare for those things. And this is why with the multiple game thing, coming back to that, you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot just run a business or an endeavor, whether it be like a side hustle, on just one newer TCG. It's just too risky. You gotta have Pokemon, you gotta have Magic, one of those 2. And then you could add a second TCG that you love, an indie TCG. But at the end of the day, those are the things that I think are rough. But the industry is also doing really, really well. And these are growing pains of an industry that has evolved and grown so much over the last 10, 15 years. I mean, it's gotta be astronomically larger in size than it was 10, 15 years ago. So those are my thoughts. I'm curious what your thoughts are in the comment section. Oh, I have honorable mentions. I have 2 honorable mentions. I'm sure people are going to be like, is scalping and whatnot? We'll talk about that for a second. Those are my 2 honorable mentions. The scalping thing, I think, needs defined. I think I'm going to define it in one way. I think some people would define it like, is anybody selling over MSRP? Which in my opinion is kind of long gone. Distribution is selling over MSRP on a lot of things. So, like, what do you want your local game store to do? It just kind of is what it is. But here is the scalping conversation. I think scalping is a problem to the degree of somebody going to a Target, a Walmart, a whatever it is, and buying up all the inventory, and then next day on Facebook Marketplace trying to sell it for a $15 profit. I think that is how I would define scalping. Is it an issue? Absolutely. Mostly in the Pokemon world. It's an issue. It prevents some people from being able to get product. I don't think it's as large scale. I think it's one of those things where a lot of people like to complain about it. But at the bigger scale, that is not close to the scale of like the way that distribution is handling reprints and pricing and that kind of thing. This is why Pokemon has been giving more product to big box, because they see the issue too of distribution. And so it's an issue. I think it's a much more refined conversation than like anybody selling things for profit, which is what business is, or anybody selling things over MSRP, which again, like a lot of times stores are buying things over MSRP. And if you come to my store with a booster box and you want to sell it to me, I'm guessing you're going to want me to value it over MSRP. So then if I buy that box, I've got to sell it for over, it's just a whole conversation I think is much bigger than that. So I look at scalping as like the people who are just doing it. They don't collect, they're just doing it to flip, and they flip really quickly and that kind of thing. That, I think it's also a problem with like when stores are actively like camping outside of Target to buy up all the supplies so that they can go sell it in their store and nobody can buy in Target. I think that's a problem. I don't do that. My solution to that is just shop at the places that don't do that, right? Like put your business to places that you know you can trust and like you don't have to worry about. But eventually that stuff will go away because the market will collapse. People who are interested in that will move on to something else. The second thing I think is Whatnot. I think that the live streaming thing is I didn't put it on, it's an honorable mention because I understand a lot of the nuances why people think it's bad. I don't particularly think it's bad. Whatnot has plenty of scammers. Scammers are bad. That's, I agree that that's bad. But the live stream thing, I think there's a whole group of people who don't understand it. And just because you don't understand something doesn't make it inherently bad. I think there's a lot of people who really engage in the hobby because of Whatnot streamers and live streamers, and that's their way of engaging with the hobby, and that's great. I want more people to engage with the hobby. I think that's fantastic. I think where it gets a little bit rough is when it gets super gambly. Listen, anytime you're opening a pack, you're gambling, so whatever. But when it gets super gambly and unsure and maybe scammy, I think that's a problem. And then from a allocation standpoint, I do think that there needs to be some form of conversation with, and I think there already is, like we are a brick and mortar store. So we hypothetically, I think, get a different type of allocation than a store that is just online, which I think is healthy because you do want people playing the game. I do think you need an incentive for stores. I'm biased, right? But you need an incentive for stores to host and put out play space. A third of the building, so a third of my rent, is dedicated to play space. So like there has to be an incentive for a business to do that. And so I think that's what that is. But I don't think Whatnot's inherently bad. I just think it opens the doors in live streaming. It opens the doors for some of the things that are a little rough in the industry. And I think people get taken advantage of because they do have some of those like addictive personalities. So those are my thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. A little bit of a different video, a little rambly, a little ranty. But hey, listen, such is life. I hope you have yourself a fantastic day. Be kind to the people around you. We'll see you again next video.